y'all, JaemiO here, and today is FoodieRant Day. If this is your first time here, FoodieRant is basically a segment I do once a week where I discuss a food-related topic, either submitted by you all or just something that's on my mind. So today we're actually going to be talking about food sovereignty. Before we get started, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, go ahead and click the bell for notification so you can see when more videos come out from me. And if you like today's video, please give me a thumbs up, and let's get started. So food sovereignty, I think, probably sounds a little more scary than what it actually is. It actually means the right to produce one's own food, specifically culturally appropriate and healthy food. Actually, the reason I started this channel was because it was a part of my graduate degree program. My thesis was actually about food access and food sovereignty in my home. And I'll post a video about that later. I actually did a little mini series about it, and so this was the continuation of that. And so the reason I was interested in that is because where I come from, though agriculture is the #1 industry, very little of the food produced there is actually for human consumption, and also very little of it is actually kept in that area. A lot of it is sent to other countries. A lot of it is for fuel, also for feed grain, especially for feed grain. And so what I was seeing was that most of the food was being exported away, and by the same token, most of the edible food was being imported in. And so I went to grad school with hopes of actually starting an aquaponic farm, and I still have that goal, but it's much different than what it was before. So actually what I did was start a farmer's market with hopes of increasing food access and food sovereignty in my home. And so far it has worked pretty well. So food sovereignty. So basically, I first got introduced to what food sovereignty was by definition in a course I was taking for grad school. And what really captivated me was a movement called La Compañía. And so basically it was a movement where Hispanic Americans had come to the U.S. and they couldn't find culturally appropriate foods, and it created a different type of homesickness. When you get homesick, you think about home, you think about the food there, and food is such a powerful thing. It goes way beyond, the tongue or the palate. It goes into your soul, really. And so what these ladies ended up doing was starting little kitchen gardens. And so they were growing herbs and different things they could on their windowsills. If they had a little bit of space outdoors, they would grow little mini gardens. And so I really liked that idea. I thought it was really inspirational, and basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a space through the farmers market where people would have somewhere to sell local fruits and vegetables and what have you, but I also wanted to teach. And so I wanted to be able to teach people that, hey, food stamps can actually be used to purchase gardening materials, and that can help feed you way cheaper and better than going to the grocery store. And so that has been pretty successful. It's getting better, which is great. But I think it's something that we forget. You think of gardening, you think of a big space, and I always thought gardening was what my dad did, and when I was younger, he had about 5 acres that he would garden, and it seemed so intense. And now he has about a 1/4 acre that he gardens, and still, it's not exactly what I have come to do for gardening. So actually, I started balcony gardening a couple years ago, and just doing fresh herbs, a few cucumbers, microgreens, and you would be amazed at how, one, fulfilling it is, because there's nothing like being able to go outside and figure out what you're going to have for dinner. It's so powerful. In other countries, they don't shop like we do. We buy in bulk here in the U.S. for the most part. Not everyone, but we buy in bulk, and that's one of the reasons why you see so many artificial preservatives, because we expect our food to last basically forever. And my aunt and cousin always say, well, bread doesn't go bad anymore. And they're kind of right. You really have to wait a while for your loaf of bread to go bad, versus 10 years ago, you had bread for a couple days and then basically it went stale, and then it eventually got moldy. You don't really see that now. So it's so much power in being able to go outside and get something off of your balcony or off of your porch. You can grow herbs indoors and save so much money on spices and herbs. And it's so simple. It's not intense, and by you doing it in a container, you don't have to worry about weeds. You do have to worry about aeration. You can throw a few worms in there. There's a few different things you can do with that. And you don't have to worry as much about watering. It's so simple. And eventually I'll do some gardening videos on here so you can see that. But there's that part, and then the cost benefit. So in the past couple of years, one, I learned how to can from one of my aunts, which is not nearly as hard as people think it is. And really, we don't buy a lot of groceries. We buy maybe like a sack of onions and a couple bushels of potatoes. So 1 sweet potatoes, 1 white potatoes a year. And that's just because those aren't things that I grow. Onions I do grow, but the past 2 years they haven't gone well. It was just too wet here. So we lost pretty much all of our onions. For me, food sovereignty is just a way to, one, I can get the foods that I want that I can't really find in the store. I grew up eating a lot of seafood, a lot of leafy greens, like kale, mustard greens, things like that, and a lot of onions, and sweet potato, and a lot of squash. And so, like a friend of mine and I, we also have a garden, or have done a garden the past couple years at his parents' place. And I think maybe we had 4 successful squash plants. And those plants fed me and my family, him and his family, and also his parents and his cousin, and we still had some to can. Like, we had so much squash. So it doesn't have to be as intense as you think it is. And I actually grew eggplant and squash on my balcony the first year I started balcony gardening, and it went really well. So gardening doesn't have to be this intense thing that takes up all of your time. It doesn't have to be expensive. I think we spent maybe $100 to $130 on seed and materials. So that was seed, starting plant pots, and a little bit of soil for the starter plants, and that was it. I mean, that was really it, and then just some time. And so, of course, the traditional garden was more intense than the balcony garden, but either way, it's worth it. So my point is, being able to produce some of your food saves you literally hundreds of dollars. It has the ability to make you healthier because you'll have way more vegetables and you'll have a need to make those. I've learned so many eggplant and squash recipes from gardening, and pepper recipes, because they're so plentiful. You can can it, you can freeze it, of course you can cook it fresh. And if you're growing what is culturally appropriate for you, you feel this better sense of, one, you have this thing that you did and that you own and that you grew, and then also this thing that kind of just belongs to a part of you, and it's just empowering. And then you also have to worry less about, let's say, natural disaster comes. Yes, that could wipe out your food supply, but it could also save you from having to depend on something like Walmart or Food Lion or any big time grocer. So I'm interested in hearing what you all have to say about food sovereignty. Have any of you started gardening? Do any of you have questions about gardening? What are your thoughts on food sovereignty? If you did start gardening, does that make you feel more food empowered? Interested in hearing what you all have to say. If you would like to suggest a topic for next week or for any time, please see the link below. And until next time, thanks for watching.